Hi fellow knitters, this is Evelyn of the Modern Needle, and today I wanted to show you something that is completely not sock related or blanket related. It is knitting bobbles. I'm mentoring a friend that has retired, and she had knit before, but like so many of us, like your knitting takes a back seat while you're busy with raising kids and earning money, or while you're in your job situation or whatnot. And now that she is retired, I'm helping her out with her knitting, selecting knits, and etc., answering questions and so on. And she had started off with a couple of hats. She knitted fingerless mitts. She knitted quite a few socks of the easy peasy Canadian winter sock pattern. And we're moving on to shawls. So I had there Espace Tricot, which is also a Canadian company. They have knit store in Montreal, Canada here. They have a shawl called the Sunday Morning Shawl, and it's quite beautiful. It's nothing strenuous. It's just a beautiful, enjoyable knit, and it looks like this. It's a free knit on Ravelry, and I had sent her the link to knit it, and then I thought, oh. It has bobbles, and bobbles are kind of like the bling or the jewelry of knitting. But the problem with bobbles is that they're not complicated, but they're quite work involved and a little bit intimidating. And depending on the pattern, once you knitted the bobble, it disappears into the fabric, or it wants to pop over to the wrong side. So I had knitted the La Prairie cardigan from Jorge Locatelli for the Loving Path, who had put together a kit. So I knitted it for hers to take to various yarn shows and whatnot, and to help her sell the kit that she had made. And Jorge Locatelli is a fantastic designer, and when she had instructed how to make the bubble, or the bobble, I should say, it's knit, purl, and then on the back row, you knit, I believe, and then you wrap the yarn under the bobble to lift it up, and then do one additional knit so that it doesn't take off into the cardigan or sweater itself. And I thought, I better knit that shawl as well, just in case Shelley runs into any problems. I can kind of help her. I'm not a novice knitter, so some of the problems that come up during the knitting of these things, I don't see them, or I don't remember that there could be a problem. But gee, the bobble knitting, yes, that was kind of like a bit of a stumper for me. So when I looked at the instructions for the bobble on the Sunday Morning Shawl, I thought, okay, there is an easier way to do this. So I thought, I'll make a quick video because I want Jelly to be able to watch it and follow it along, and I'll help her along, and I'll show you two different ways of doing the bobbles so that they don't disappear into the pattern. One is with a crochet hook, and the other one is just with the knitting needle. So have a look at it, and as I am a continental knitter, I'm don't look at the way where the lead yarn is, just look at my fingers and how the bobble is made. In my case, I used a yarn that I really like, which is the Eco Indian DK wool from Estelle. I believe it's 1450. It's 100% wool. It's a sport weight, and it has a length of 350 meters for 100 grams. And I also use the King Cole homespun prism, which is a bit of a heathery. It has like these little bobs and bits in there for the heathered effect, and it is 50 grams merino alpaca in acrylic, and I kind of like that. And it goes, let me see, I think it's almost 200 meters, not quite, for the 50 grams. So it's more of a fingering weight, but because it's inserted into this, it's just fine. So I thought I had purchased enough to make the shawl and then the bottom section. However, I did run out, or I was afraid I was going to run out on this bottom rib here. So instead of making 16 rows of the rib, I had made 14 rows or 13 rows of the rib, and then I added 2 rows of the main color because I had quite a bit left of the DK, and then I cast off with a prism, which ended up looking quite nice. Now, these are twisted stitches. I hate making twisted stitches on the purl side, so mine are just regular knits and purls. I believe that Shelley did twist her stitches, but it kind of hurts my hand, and I think there's not enough benefit to end up doing the twisted stitch, so I didn't really do that. And because I had an uneven number of rib rows here, like if you knit on a long cable or a DPNs or whatever, you actually get to knit from both sides. So I just slid the yarn back and started from the other side because I knew I had enough yarn left to cast off, but I wasn't sure that I had enough yarn left for a whole row because I weighed it, and then this is what my answer was. Now, if you don't weigh your yarn, you can always, like, one row is 3 times the length. If I want to cast off, I use 4 times the length. And this is what I needed to have left over to make sure that I had enough to cast off in the alternate yarn, which I did. But I want to show you the bobbles so that they stand nice and pretty and they don't take off into the fabric. So I'm going to show you 2 ways. One is with a crochet hook and the other one is with the needles. Now, what I do like to use on I always have smaller needles beside my knitting station, just because it's handy to have it if I drop a stitch or if anything else goes on, and I will use a smaller needle for this here. So here I just have some acrylic yarn that I cast on a few stitches here to show you, and I got 2 different, knocking everything over, sorry about that. I have 2 different starts so that I can show you, and I also show you an elastic cast off for the shawls, because if the cast off is too tight on the top, it'll compress the shawl and it won't be you might have to open it up and redo it. So like I said, one is with a crochet hook and one is with a thinner needle. So I'm going to turn around my work here, and let me see. Just give me one moment and I'll turn this around. If you have knit a bobble before, you know that to make a bobble sometimes takes many passes into this one stitch that goes back and forth until you decrease to make the bobble pop out. What I would like to show you is just how to knit it in one pass with the knitting needles. And of course I have my thinner DPN here just to assist me in case I need it. So we're going to make 7 loops into this one stitch here by knitting front and back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I had these 2 stitches before here, and these are the 7 stitches that make up the bobble. So what I want to do is pull the 6 stitches over top of that extra stitch. So I just grab them all in one. Sometimes that works, and sometimes I need to have the DPN as assistant. So I pulled the 6 loops over top, and to bring it back to 1 stitch, I'm going to knit into the back loop of this stitch, and I'm going to make 2 stitches as if you were actually crocheting up or making a ladder. I'm going to pull that out a little bit. What I want to do is on the bottom of the bobble there is this stitch here, so I'm going to go in here and pull the bobble through, or that last stitch here, and pull it tight. There we go, and knit 2 stitches. By doing this, this bobble here is pushed right to the front, and it will stay without disappearing into the fabric, and we made a bobble in one go, no back and forths. So I'm going to show you this a few more times before I'll show you the crochet version. 1, knitting back and forth, like knitting front and back into this 1 stitch. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And try to be a bit loose. Don't pull your yarn tight, because you do have to go through these stitches here to pull them over this last stitch. So let's see if I can grab them all in one go, and I can. So I'll just put a little bit of tension on this last yarn here so it doesn't pop off. Here it is, going through all of these stitches. Here's my bobble. I'll insert my needle and I'll knit 2 stitches upwards. 1, 2. This will give me enough of a neck, really, that once I pull it through the bottom here, it'll stand nice and perky without it being too tight. So I'll find this space, the next space right under the bobble, which is right here, if you can see this, right here. And if you're not quite sure whether you're at the bottom of the stitch or whatnot, push the bobble about so that I can bring it up. There we go. And pull that tight. And the bobble is pushed out. And I can knit 2. It actually doesn't matter. If I were to be in the wrong spot down here, nobody would know this after. So don't fret about that. So again, I'll knit 2 stitches. And we'll do it again. 1. And I do pull this a little bit because I do want this stitch to be loose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This here is my 7th stitch. So I'll grab all of these, pull this tight and pull it through. There we go. And now I can tension it a little bit. This yarn here, I'll knit 1, 2. You don't really have to pull it tight, but I will pull this loop a little bit larger, and it it looks a little bit more complicated than what it actually is. And if I can't get into these stitches here, I always have the option of using a thinner DPN to help me pull it over. Okay, I go into the bottom. Let me see if I can just, which is right here. I can pull it apart so that you can see it. This is the stitch, the below one that I want to go into, the V. I'll actually, it automatically turns downwards. And here's my stitch, and here is the bobble. Knit 1, 2. And, okay, well, I'll just keep on going to show you. Again, we have a front leg and we have a back leg of your knit stitch. So we're going to knit into the front and then into the back and into the front and into the back 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This here is my 7th stitch. You can see the bobble is here. Here's my 2 knit stitches, and this one here is my 7th stitch. So I don't need to grab him, but I'll grab the others and force this little guy, and I just dropped him. If you are afraid that you're going to drop the stitch, this is where we picked up. No, I'll show it to you on the next one. Go back in here. I'll tension this with my finger so that it does not hop off. Okay, so for some reason I'm having a hard time, which is fine. I can just split this and do a few at a time, like 3 and 3 or 2 and 2, whichever you want. Here we are. I will knit 2 stitches. 1. They're just basically chain stitches because they make this chain here of 2. Pull up the loop. Find the last V on the bottom, which is this guy here, and pull him through. Here he is. It's not as complicated when you knit it, but I'm looking through a camera lens up here and knitting in between the space here. So then again, I knit my 2 and 1, front leg, back leg, front leg, back leg, front leg, back leg. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 more 7. So you can actually leave this stitch on here if you're afraid that that it'll take off. See, like this, if I would have to push it back off and redo this stitch, I still have him. And we pulled him out quite a bit anyway, so not a problem. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and grab them and pull it up. Okay. Just maybe do half of them if it doesn't want to. And I didn't really think about this. I'm using acrylic yarn, which is not as nice as a regular wool yarn because there is no give in it. So that was probably not my best choice. But anyways, I'll pull this up here and again go through the bottom to pull this up. There we go. Pop it back to the front and knit the next two. I'm going to put this down here now for a minute because I'm going to show you how to do it with the crochet hook. I don't think that one way is better than the other way because they both do the same thing. Do what works best for you. Sometimes I find with a crochet hook, there is a lot of needles going on here. So I kind of have to turn it this way in order to be able to do it properly. So my needle is under my crochet hook. Otherwise, it just gets too tangled up with too many needles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So now I have the 7th is right here. I'll just grab this hook here, but I'm hanging on to my work and I just pull it right through. This is the original stitch. I can pop this off now. I'll do 2 chain stitches, pull up my loop, go under. This is what I mean by having lots of needles going on. Actually, I don't need to have it that big. I can just pull him up. There we go. Bring him up and put him back on the needle. Tension the yarn and knit. Rock my needle here, 2 stitches. Again, pull that out a little bit and repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oops, don't need to. Take that 7th stitch, pull it right through, and 1, 2. Go under here. And pull it up. Sorry. Stick it back on the needle. There we go. Rock the yarn a little bit. You can see that the bobble is right here. And knit 2. 1, 2. So you can see the bobbles are quite nice and perky sitting right here at the front. Let's show this one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th stitch here gets pulled through the 6 that are on my needle. I loop up 2, which is a chain stitch, and we'll just go under the stitch here, grab the loop, and bring it up. Rock my needle and knit 2. I'll do one more. Trying to stay in focus here as best as I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the one that I need to pull all the way through. 1, 2. Go to the bottom of the stitch here and pull the loop up. I set it on the left needle because that's the one that's right there, but I actually want to have it on the right needle because this has been knitted, and knit 2. So we're going to knit to the end. Just going to show you how to knit over them. Let me see. You just knit over the stitch, rock your needle a little bit. 1, 2. Here is the bobble, and I can see it, and it sits in the front quite nicely. Rock your needle a little bit. Purl the 2. Knit through the bobble and purl the bobble, rock the needle, and we're back at the front. So here are the bobble stitches. They look quite pretty. We didn't need to have 2 passes like the knit and the purl and then turn around and purl them all. The same happens here. We're just going to knit back. This is the one that we did without the crochet hook. I'm just going to purl them back. I can feel them with my finger. I rock my needle to get that tight. 1. Here is the next one. Make sure that it's nice and tight. 1, 2. Here is the bobble. Just push it to the front because it does want to twist a little bit, which we don't want. Okay, here they are. And here is the last bobble. Whoops. Again, I have the camera right under my face here between the knitting and my eyes here. So this is a little bit different. So let's have a look here. There we go. Here are the bobbles. There's no difference in the bobbles that are made with a crochet hook and that are made with the needle. This here is a bit thicker yarn than this, but they're quite perky and they stand up quite nice. And I can show this on the shawl here as well. This here is in a sport weight yarn. You can see there is no slipping to the back. They will never disappear into the back. Now this is already blocked, but they are quite pretty. So how do I cast off? Because you do on these shawls here, you do need to be a little bit loose in your cast off to make sure that it doesn't pull it together. So again, there is 2 different ways that you can do this. You can use a crochet hook to cast off. And what I do is I knit my first stitch and then I'll put them back onto, I put this first stitch that I just knitted back onto my needle, and through the back loop, I'll knit through the back loop with my crochet hook. And I do that quite loose. I get into the back of this stitch, of both stitches here, and I keep going like this. This is the cast off that I use for socks and sleeves, just about for everything where it is important that you're not casting off tight. So I just Bring that knitted stitch back onto the left needle and knit it together with a stitch off the left needle. I transfer from the right back to the left and knit into the back loop, which as you can see is quite easy and flawlessly done. I will show you how the finished product looks. Oops. Now, come on, there we go. You can see that the elasticity is quite nice, and it's quite pretty how that finishes off. I'm going to show you the same stitch here with the knitting needle. So I only knit the first stitch by itself. I will knit this just as a regular knit. I'll transfer this quite loosely back onto my needle, and I knit the next 2 stitches together through the back loop. I'll push it back on here, and I knit them together and bring it back up here. Retension this a little bit. Knit them back through the back loop. Put this stitch back on here. Knit them together through the back loop. Bring this stitch back onto this needle here. Tension it a little bit. I do want to have quite a loose cast off. Now, in the Sunday morning shawl, we do have knits and purls. So even though here I just did the straight knits, I will show you how that would be as a purl. I'll bring it back with the yarn in front, and I'll just purl these 2 together. I'll stick it back on here, and I knit them together through the back loop. I'll stick this loop back on here with the yarn in front so that I can purl them together. Stick it back on and do a knit through the back loop, purl it together, knit it together with the yarn in the back, purl it together with the yarn in the front, and then the last stitch I would knit those 2 together. Well, actually I'm going to knit this all the way to the end. Sorry. And of course, if you're in a purl row, you would purl row this all the way through. Stick it back on with the yarn in the back. Purl it together with the yarn in the front. Knit it together with the yarn in the back. Purl it together with the yarn in the front. There we go. This is my last stitch. And there we go. I'll pull this as a bigger loop, and I'll just have like 1 chain stitch or pull this here through my last knitting loop, and then I can pull it tight and it'll never go anywhere. So here are the bobble stitches. They're on the front. Quite pretty. There's no way that they will ever push to the back. They will stay exactly where you want them. You did the bobble in 1 pass, which I think is the easiest bobble that there is. Whether you use a crochet hook whether you need to use a smaller DPN to push it through, which disappeared under my board, or whether you just use your regular knitting needles, that is fine. So I hope that this video helped you with the bobbles, that they do not disappear. And I hope, Shelley, that that will answer some of your questions. And again, it's a bobble in one pass. Okay? I will talk to you later, my knitting friends, and have a fantastic day knitting, and knit as you mean to go forward. Fearless.